Hello everybody, my name is Niclas Huschenbeth and this is my analysis of a game I played in the Millionaire Chess Tournament in Las Vegas, and I played against Grandmaster Alonso Zapata in round number 7, and I will show you this game in a moment. I'm a little bit sick, so possibly I might not sound as, excited about the game as usual, but I'll try and do my best. Maybe before we start this analysis, a few words about the tournament. Millionaire Chess is called so because it has a prize fund of a total of $1 million, so a lot of money at stake. And this round was really important for me because it was the 7th round, and after 7 rounds, the best 4 players in each section, and for me it was my section ELO 2400 to 2550, go on to Millionaire Monday and really play for a lot of money. So I needed to win this game to get into the playoffs for Millionaire Monday. My opponent, Grandmaster, with an ELO of 2445, and I'd say we have a look. He started with e4, and I was actually quite happy to see this because the knight off is exactly the kind of opening you want to play if you need to play for a win. So knight f6, knight c3, a6, and here I expected him to go bishop c4. This is what he had done in the past mainly, but he went for g3, and I was also perfectly fine with this approach. Here it's very simple play for black. It's not really a knight off anymore, it's more of a dragon, because I go for this g6, bishop g7 setup, and it's very simple and easy to play for black. Castle, castle, and he played a4, which is not the main move. Usually people play h3 or something else like rook e1, but h3 makes a lot of sense to take knight g4 out of the position, possibly bishop g4. So he played a4, restricting or preventing b5 from happening in the future. I played knight c6, and now he played knight b3. And in fact, already this position is slightly more pleasant for black. I played bishop g4, which seemed to make a lot of sense to me, and it makes some sense, but it might have been easier to just play a move like knight e5 and aim for the square on c4, and a knight on c4 is really unpleasant for white because he has no easy way to get rid of it, and obviously it's quite constricting white's play. But instead I played bishop g4 because I thought he doesn't really have a good reply to this attack on his queen, and he played f3. If he moves the queen, obviously I'll just return with my bishop to e6 or d7, and the queen would not be well placed. Queen d2, queen would be in the way of the bishop obviously, and also on e1 the queen is just not in the right spot. So he played f3, and now I just returned to d7, and also here I have gained something. I've provoked f3, which is usually not something white wants to do because it is weakening considerably the area around his king. Especially this diagonal is now weak, and the dark squares can be maybe exploited in the future. So I returned to d7 at this point. Could have also gone to e6. I didn't like knight d5, and after knight d5 you usually want to take with the knight on d5 to keep your bishop here, but here you can, because after e takes d5 there would be the fork of bishop and knight. But instead of taking on d5 I could just play knight e5 here, and once again aim for c4 and maybe take on d5 and move later. So that would have been perfectly fine. Alright, but bishop d7 is also fine, I guess. f4, and now rook c8, also a very normal move. And now h3, and here play queen c7. But it seems that somewhere along the way something didn't go perfect for me. Out of the opening I have a nice position already, but here I just played natural moves, but it seems like I lost my edge somewhere. Here the computer suggests playing knight h5, attacking pawn g3 and then destroying white's pawn structure with bishop takes c3. But I didn't really like this as much because I give up my very powerful dark squared bishop, and obviously now the dark squares around my king are weakened. So this is quite double-edged, I would say. I didn't like it so much. Instead, another move possibly is b6, preventing white from locking in the pawn structure on the queen side, and also preparing knight a5, which can be quite interesting. Let's say after knight d5, take. Knight a5 is an interesting motive in a position to get double pawns on the a file, but you don't mind that much because you get the b file for your rooks, and you can create some play and some pressure against the white pawns on the queen side. Okay, I play queen c7, and I believe I missed a5, that he could play a5 here. If he played a move like bishop e3, not quite sure what I wanted to do. Did I want to go knight b4 or maybe b6 now? Maybe I want to play b6 now. Yeah, not sure honestly. But then I realized he can play a5 immediately, and if he gets to play bishop e3 and put the bishop maybe on b6, my position is a little crumbled and I didn't like it. So I thought, okay, now I should play b6 and free my position a little bit. But on the other hand, I do have this weakness now in a6, which is obviously attacked by the rook, and in fact position seems to be slightly preferable for white. Let me drink something real quick. I don't know, with this illness I always have dry lips. So here I played knight b4, and that's a beautiful square for the knight, obviously protecting pawn a6 and also putting on some pressure on c2. Now he played rook e1. Another move which I actually expected was to move queen e2, and I was looking at bishop b5 here, but it seems it doesn't quite work, and I'm not sure if I would have done it here. The point is, black can take on c2, attack the queen, but in the end, after bishop d2 takes b5, queen d1, it seems that the black pieces are a little bit hanging in the air, and white is in very good shape here after queen e2 with the threat of bishop e3. So that's no good. Instead, could play something like knight h5 again hinting at the possibility of bishop takes c3, which I don't like that much, but you gotta do something. So here white can play a move like rook f3, and it's about equal. Okay, played rook e1, also makes sense, preparing bishop e3 possibly. I played bishop e6, now threatening knight takes c2 and taking b3. And I really expected him to play bishop e3 now. I don't know why he didn't do it. He played rook a3, which obviously also prevents knight takes c2, but there just didn't seem anything wrong with developing the bishop. Now I played knight d7 to... what do I want to do? I guess maybe threaten to take on c3, as well as maybe play knight c5, we'll see. And here he played knight a4, which I was quite happy to see, and is actually an inaccuracy. Instead he should play now finally bishop e3. I return with my queen to b8, knight d4, and bishop c4. And here computer says b5, f5 is a good move, which is surprising to me because you give away the square on e5, but the point is that you want to put some pressure on this bishop on c4, which isn't really having this many squares. Obviously it can go to b5, but if you go to b5 it can be exchanged by the knights. And it seems position is quite unclear. Rook fd8, possibly preparing a move like e5. Quite a complex position at this point. So he played knight a4, and I go to b5. And now he should go back, actually. He should play knight c3 again, when I should play queen b8, because after bishop takes c3, now white can play knight d4, attack the queen, and f5, and this doesn't look good for black. So better not do that. Instead, he played knight a1. Well, right now, obviously, this pawn on c2 is hanging, which is a problem for white. And you don't want to play a move like c3, especially because the knight is coming in on d3. I was actually calculating these variations quite a bit. After bishop f1, what was I looking at? I was looking at bishop takes b3, but unfortunately this doesn't win immediately, because of the rook takes b3, queen takes a4, bishop takes d3, knight c5. White is getting out of it with rook a3, and then everything's good for him. So that doesn't work that well, but I think I just want to play bishop c4 here, and this looks just very strong. If at any point white has to exchange his light square bishop, his king is going to be much weaker, obviously, without the bishop in front to protect him. So he decided to play knight a1. Obviously this cannot be the solution to this position, and now the question was, how should I continue to increase the pressure to improve my position? And I played knight b6. Point being to exchange this knight on a4, which is a defender of this pawn on b2, for example. And here he took. Queen takes, bishop e3, but I just play queen b5 back. And once again we have a pawn hanging on b2. Not easy for white to defend. He played bishop f1, bishop c4. And I was also quite happy to do this exchange, because as I said earlier, if the bishops come off the board, the light square bishops, this king is suddenly much weaker. And now you can see how nice it is that this pawn on f4 is on f4 and not f2 anymore, and how, for example, the second rank is weak and can be used to attack the white king. So now still the pawn on c2 is hanging, so he played c3. I hopped in, knight d3. And he went rook e2. Now I played maybe too quickly. I just thought this pawn e4 is hanging, so let's grab it. But things are not that easy, unfortunately. And instead of taking on e4, I should have played e5. And now, for example, f takes e5, knight takes e5, and white is not losing a pawn, but really his problem is his weak king. And also this piece on a1 is not that pretty. So black is clearly better at this point. Rook fe8, put on some more pressure. And really, in all these variations, always in the end, the weak king of white, which is really bothering him. So instead I took on e4, and I was quite happy here. Bishop d4, and now queen f5. Of course I had to make sure I'm still protecting this knight on d3. And now he took on g7. I thought, well, looks like I'm just up a pawn. Rook takes e7, of course I wasn't worried about, because just knight takes b2, for example, knight coming to c4, and this all looked pretty good. But he just played knight b3. Knight is coming back and is threatening to go to d4. And then of course there's some pawns hanging here, so I had to do something. And I thought the next move was very natural. And in fact, it is a good move, but I don't have any advantage anymore, which is quite sad. So I played e5. Makes a lot of sense to take the square on d4 away, to possibly stabilize this knight, the strong knight on d3. But he played a really good move now, which I didn't see, which is rook a5. I was only looking at rook takes a6, but rook a5 is such a strong move because it prevents me from playing e4. And once again, there's a threat of knight d4. And he's also putting pressure on this pawn on e5, obviously. So if I move my knight c5, then he's just going to take this and take on e5, and I don't have any advantage at all. In fact, I'm worse. So I spent a lot of time at this point to come up with something, create something, because he was pretty low on time. That meant I need to keep the position complicated. Because after all, I needed this win, right? And I spent a lot of time. I looked at knight takes f4, and I wanted to make it to work, but just didn't work. Queen takes f4, king g2. I can give a perpetual here, but it seems there's no way to really create threats or create any opportunities for him to go wrong. Just no way to bring my rooks into action, really. So I discarded this move, and I played rook f8. And we'll see the point in a moment. He played knight d4 as expected. Now, I wish this move would have worked, but just didn't work. After queen takes d3, there's this cute idea e4, and if white takes on h5, then I can take on d3, and that doesn't even work. What am I talking about? After rook takes e8, rook takes e8, rook d5, even this works. But let's say if my rook wasn't on e8, if I had played a different move, then this variation could have worked, because here obviously both rooks are hanging. Let's say rook is still on f8, but the whole problem of this variation is, of course, that white can play queen takes a6 and defend the rook on a5. So just doesn't work at all. Best move in the position here is queen f6, but I saw this line, and this is exactly what I did not want to play. A lot of easy moves for him to play to reach the 40th move. Right now it's the 33rd, and here we get into this rook endgame, and well, I thought this is just completely equal. When I looked with computer, black still has some chance because the king is cut off here and my king is a little bit more active, but that's just not what I was looking for, right? So instead of playing queen f6, I played queen d7. Now queen takes d3 and e takes d4. And here we see why I put my rook on e8, so I have the rook on the open file immediately. He took on d4, I go back to g8, and my hope was simply to create something against this weak king. Here he played rook d2, which is the first inaccuracy. He should play rook g2 to block this long diagonal. And now I would need to defend my pawn on a6, rook c6, and now queen d2. And he's in fact slightly better, maybe even. But it's pretty close to equal. Okay, instead he played rook d2, which makes sense. But now rook e1. And already you can see some threats looming against the white king. He can't take on a6 now because of queen b7 with the double attack. So instead he played rook d5. Better would have been once again rook g2 just to block this diagonal. But he played rook d5. Now rook c8, and now I was very happy to see rook takes d6. Best move is queen f2, but already black is a little bit better here. Rook a8, e3, and now threatening queen e7 followed by rook e2, so white has to play queen g2, queen e7, rook f2, so you can defend with rook d2 here. And well, this is probably going to peter out in a draw, but black can still try a little bit. Maybe h5, you know, things like that, and maybe something's going to happen, maybe not. But it is not an easy position to play if you are very low in time, and he was very low in time at this point. Play with a special time control, which is that you don't get half a minute increment after every move, but instead there's a 5-second delay. And the difference between delay and increment is that you don't gain time. So you play a move, you press the clock, and then 5 seconds pass, and then the time of your opponent starts ticking. So if you're down to, let's say, a half a minute, then you don't gain any time. So you only have this 5 seconds delay, and this can be really, really difficult, obviously. So you took on d6, and here spent some time, but I'd already seen the combination, but I was wondering if there was something better. But, well, in fact, you know what, guys? I'll let you figure this out. What did I play here with the black pieces to gain a winning advantage? If you want to stop the video and let's see if you can figure it out. Alright, so I played rook h1. Rook e2 or anything like that is not convincing. Because, well, now he plays king g1 obviously, pawn on h3 doesn't hang with check, and I might be just losing because he plays rook d8 next move, so that's no good. But rook h1 is the critical move. He has to take, otherwise he's made it shortly. Now queen takes, rook h2 is also forced, but I think he flagged. He flagged right here. Yes, he flagged right here, which was helpful because I didn't have to play on. But he needs to play rook h2. Obviously, if he goes for king g1, then rook e1 is checkmate right away. So rook h2, now rook e1 and queen g1, and he's not being checkmated. But after queen takes g3, obviously he's going to lose his queen, and well, it's not only that, he's also going to lose another pawn here on f4, and he can't even win this pawn on a6 because after the rook takes a6 is queen d2 and queen e1 and queen e2 and collect the rook. So at this point it's just 3 pawns, 3 connected pawns, and that's too much, and black is going to win here. But white can still try, obviously. Alright, so that was a really important win for me. So I made it to playoffs for the Final Four Monday, but I didn't make it into the Final Four, unfortunately. So what happened was there were 5 players playing for 3 spots. Grandmaster Samuel Sevian, Hernandez Holden Hernandez, not quite sure, Marcin Tatschbier, and Axel Rombaldoni and myself, and we played 4 15-minute games, and well, I just didn't do well. I lost my first game against Rombaldoni with black piece, which was okay, but then I lost my second game with the white piece against Tatschbier, which I should not have lost. That's the one I'm most regretful about. And then I came back with a win against Sevian with the black piece, and I needed a win the last round against Hernandez, but I just couldn't make it. He played very solid Rubinstein defense, and I lost that one. I was out, which was very unfortunate because a lot of money at stake, but still a very nice experience. So what happened actually, after I was kicked out, I was returned back to the normal tournament, and we had still 2 more rounds to go. And in the next one I played against Akobian, and I've also analyzed this game, so if you want to check this one out, you can just click somewhere up there and it leads you right to the game. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis, and I'll see you soon again. Bye.